Welcome to What's My Thesis. I'm Javier Proenza, and today my guest is Edward Cushenberry. How you doing, Edward?
Doing well.
Are you from LA originally?
No, I'm from Orange County.
From Orange County?
Huntington Beach.
My perception is that it's just like, you know, the stereotype over here is that it's like rich Republicans, like Trump voters.
When I was growing up, it was a mecca for skinheads.
Yeah.
And then two things I remember was my dad was talking about the first time he moved to Huntington Beach. And he was very nonchalant. He was like, yeah, I got in a fight with 3 skinheads on the beach. And I was like, what happened? He's like, well, one hit me with a pipe. I'm like, what? Wait, what? And then it's like, yeah. And then when I was 12, my dad was, because we had a shooting range next to our house. He was saying, hey, oh, by the way, it's getting kind of gnarly. Your mom and I might have to get a gun. And if we do get a gun, I need to show you how to use it.
Wow.
And dropped it. He went into the kitchen and did other stuff. And I was like, want to talk more about this?
Wow.
So yeah, we didn't have bad neighborhoods. Luckily for me, the part of Huntington Beach I grew up in, it was the first part of Huntington Beach. So the town over was Westminster. So they had a heavy Latino and heavy Vietnamese population. Mm-hmm. So this skinhead stuff was when I went skating and when I went more towards the beach. Yeah,
it was like more of a turf war thing. Kind of like, did you ever watch, this came up recently, the Point Break movie?
Oh, I love that movie. Yeah.
Paul Loya was saying that he was also, like, I was roasting him for being like a typical, like, because he wanted to be a cop.
Oh, yeah.
But he also surfs.
Yeah, so I grew up skating, and towards the beach is when we had problems. Like, my mom was very sketched of me going towards the beach.
Okay.
And we went to the beach a lot, but the beach was like 20 minutes from us, and that's when you saw Swazies, and that's when you saw skinheads, and that's when, so like at Templeton's work, when you see like skinheads and stuff, it's towards the beach.
At Templeton's work, you said?
Oh, when you photograph skinheads, or when you see any like photographer, street photographer talk about Huntington Beach and skinheads, it's towards the beach.
Okay, I didn't know that. And actually, after I asked you that question, I realized that I know somebody that lived in a mobile home in Orange County.
There's a lot of mobile homes there.
Yeah, so I'm trying to just picture what like the scene is like, because it is like over here, everybody's like Orange County, like it's kind of like it's kind of, I mean, beyond the skinhead side of it, it's like seen as a like a ritzy, like Republican area compared to like LA being a lot more liberal.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's an accurate assessment? I mean, that's just my perception as a Miami kid.
Oh, okay. It's weird because growing up, Huntington Beach was very small business oriented.
Okay.
And
so that makes sense.
There was more small businesses than there are. Because right now, it's like everything's like a big box corporation. Mm-hmm. But there was more family-run restaurants when I was growing up. I got into skating. I got into punk. I got into hardcore music. I got into comics. I got into art because of Huntington Beach. Because the people who were my age wanted to rebel.
Yeah.
And
so it had a DIY like punk scene.
A lot.
Yeah.
Like first, I saw there's this band called Man is a Bastard. It's like a hardcore grindcore band, like first like pioneers of it, and they used to play at Huntington Beach Library. In the early 90s. So that's what it was, kind of like the younger generation fighting against the older, more Republican generation. So I got into skating and punk because of that, and hardcore because of that, and comics, Charles Bukowski, because of kids wanting to rebel.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like when in your consciousness, like for me, rebellion was more directed towards like the idea of like critical thought in terms of religion and stuff.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't have a religious upbringing, though, I don't think that would be the case. So what were your things that you were rebelling against? That's an interesting like.
Okay. Honestly, I just like stuff. Okay. So I didn't know it was rebellion until like my cousins was like, "Oh, you're trying to be white." I was like, "No, I just like The Simpsons," and I equated listening to religious music with, I don't want to say being a square, but I wanted to move away from that as far as possible.
Was that happening in your family? Like, were
my okay, so we used to go to church. My mom, my sister, my brothers, cousins, and I, and my dad stayed home. And for the longest time, I thought my dad was an atheist. And I asked him about it, and he was like, "Oh no, that pastor at the church didn't allow women to be in the pulpit," and I thought that was bullshit. So I stayed home. And I was like, "What?" So yeah, like if God calls you to teach the word of God, like who cares what sex you are? So
yeah,
when he said women can't be in the pulpit, I just stayed home.
wow.
And then he's like, actually, I went to the church down the street from my house, and it was really nice because they were Lutheran, and it was 20 minutes, and I was home to like enjoy myself. And I was bummed out because I went to a Black Baptist church, and it was 3 hours. Like we wake up, we wake up at 9 and get back home at 1 and 2, and I was really bummed out.
So it sounds like there may have been some rebellion. Are you an atheist, or are you
I'm agnostic?
Yeah, that's basically where I'm at too. But it seems like that, like there's a similar like because I don't really think I had like the political savvy to be rebellious. You know, like when I was young, I didn't know shit. I was like, I was like, yeah, vote blue.
Yeah. Dude, so funny you say that because like both my parents are Democrats, and when I was 16, 17, and I was doing stuff to register to vote because I've been voting since I was 18. My dad, he was like, this is very important. He's like, I don't care who you vote for, just don't vote because you feel obligated. So if the candidate is a Democrat and you're a Democrat, but you don't like what he's about, rebel and vote for whoever you want to vote. And so to me, that's like my rebellion. And one of the reasons why I am agnostic is my dad abhorred religion. Like he hated it.
So even though he still went to church.
Yeah, he believed that religion is man-made, but he believes in God.
Okay.
So I remember one time, and this is like very important and kind of drives my beliefs. I went to a Baptist school, and for some reason, it was right when the first George Bush was president, like his dad. Yeah. And they were like, oh, if you watch The Simpsons, it says...
Sorry, I love that for our generation.
Yeah, like we have to be very specific.
But also the way you phrased it, like his dad is like the father of the really bad one.
Yeah, it was like the bad one and the dad.
Yeah.
But
the one that the father was like, yeah, you shouldn't be working with these people. If you remember that, that was crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. But for some reason, the school was like very religious, like highly conservative, and they were like, oh, if you watch The Simpsons, it's a sin. So being a little kid, I think the exact words, if you watch The Simpsons, it's a sin, you're going to hell. And I'm like a little kid.
Yeah.
So I finished all my homework, and my dad was like, oh, you're not watching The Simpsons? And I was like, oh, it's a sin. And he was like, says who? I was like, my school. And then he went into the family room, turned on The Simpsons, and was like, that is bullshit. That is man-made rules.
I like your dad.
I like him too. He's like the first positive role model I had in my life.
That's cool. So where are your parents from? Are they also Orange County born and raised?
My mom is from Dyersburg, Tennessee. My dad's from Indianapolis, Indiana. They're both
okay.
And the thing is like my dad's more liberal about race. And they both grew up in Jim Crow South.
Yeah.
My mom is not. She is very hardcore about blackness.
Like militant?
Very kind of militant, and my dad's not.
I missed that term. Like, I don't know what happened to it. I think heroin happened to it. And the Black Panthers, I
remember one time I was failing, let's just be honest, all my classes in school because like I have a hard time learning. And my mom was like, Malcolm X would be so disappointed in you.
Holy shit.
And I was like, what? She's like, if Malcolm X was still alive and he knew we were getting Fs, he would be so disappointed.
That's hilarious. I mean, it's probably a lot of...
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff. Like
it's like, well, I'm Catholic. Well, one of the things that I was laughing is like, yeah, it makes sense that your dad is sort of like not pro-religion and he went to a Lutheran church because that's like the antithesis of what I grew up with, which was hardcore, like, like Catholicism in Italy.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's laissez-faire.
Yeah. Are you from Italy?
I just lived there when I was little.
Okay.
But it's interesting. Like if you leave me up to my own devices, we'll only talk about religion, about your religious upbringing. But it's funny. I do think it's like a really interesting world, like insight into like, like you start off somewhere and then you come from something, you come from something essentially, right? Where you have to like learn, like everybody I guess has critical thinking skills, but everybody has
critical thinking skills.
I'm being generous.
You are.
But it's like, what do you apply those skills to? Which is what I find interesting about that, the discussion of of religion. But like, what in terms of rebellion, like, were you listening to any punk that like spoke to you? Like, were you listening to No Effects? You're over the age, right?
I'm over the age. So the reason I started listening to that music was my mom, not my dad. My mom had a very strict no rap rule.
Oh my gosh!
Except for Kirk Franklin, and let's be honest, I was not going to listen to Kirk Franklin.
I don't know who that is.
Oh, you what? Okay,
wait, what are his hits?
He was this very pro-religious rapper.
Okay,
he sucked.
Yeah,
that's mean. That's mean. But it's not my taste in music.
It's hip hop. You can call someone out. It's not like you're not going after Taylor Swift, who has a completely supportive fan base. You know, I would never
go for Taylor Swift. I was like, dude, I respect myself too much. I can't deal with that. But I was like, well, I can't listen to rap. I'm not gonna listen to Kirk Franklin. Oh, I'll listen to pop music. And then I was like, I'm not listening to pop music. And my next door neighbor was like, have you heard of NoFX? I'm like, oh, okay. But what really got me into it was one night, is VH1 still a thing?
Now, that's a good question. I mean, is cable still a thing?
Yeah.
As far as my experience, it's not. But yeah.
Okay. So
I would be surprised if it's gone entirely.
Yeah. So they had this thing like 100 artists of hard rock, and number 99 was Bad Brains.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And I got their CD. I was like, this is so crazy. And it was a precursor to Wikipedia, but there was a site where if you type in a music, like a band, it would give you like, oh, here's a band that sounds like it. And
Napster. No, I'm kidding.
No, I wish it was. And then I found the Dead Kennedys, and I was like, what?
Okay.
This is... And the stuff they were talking about, Angela's voice, and Plastic Surgery Disaster is still like my favorite album. When I found out about Dead Kennedys, like, this is... Like, whoa, I never heard anything like this. And especially that album, it's like the tightest punk album I heard, where it's like a mix of like heavy metal, a mix of punk, a mix of surf, and it opened my eyes up to different types of music, opened my eyes up to politics, and then I was like, this is like awesome. I want more stuff like this. So I started diving more into it, and then skating really helped with that because I'm from Huntington Beach, I gravitated more towards the Hessian skaters, like the white skaters and long hair that's in the like rock and roll music, because that's like what I...
Hessian?
Like, it's like...
Is that like a pothead terminology?
No, like, it's just like long hair, mellow dudes.
I thought Hesher was like a pothead. I don't know.
Maybe you might be pothead.
That's like a California terminology.
Yeah.
So you said Hesher, right?
Yeah, so it's like fresh skaters is like hip-hop like stuff. That's more towards LA.
Okay.
Huntington Beach is like more like tight pants stuff, and I found out about Charles Bukowski from one of their like interviews that they were talking about, like being like one of the Foundation skate team was on tour, and one of the skaters like, oh, I have all Bukowski's books. I was like, oh, who's Bukowski? And then I worked at the Huntington Beach Library, and I found out about Bukowski, and I was like, this is amazing. And it kind of, that was my rebellion. It wasn't like I was trying to. No,
it's just it's that critical thinking thing. You start to become your own self, right? I think like it's all the religion thing is parallel to music too, because you start growing up like listening. What is it, Clifford? What? Huh? The rapper?
Kirk Franklin. I'm so surprised.
I'm gonna totally
you're going to be bummed. Oh, I'm not bummed. It's just like very safe rap, and then always about how...
My favorite religious song, rap song is Craig Mack on his debut album had a song, "What You Gonna Do When God Comes." Could talk now.
Like what you just said, that's his whole discography.
So it sounds like Jared the Damager, who's like insufferable because it's just like you're living your life wrong, dude. And like Common too, I also found was very much preachy. Although Jello Biafra's preachy as shit, but in the punk realm, I can stomach it better.
I think it's because he had like a good rhythm section behind him.
Yeah.
And I remember one time I was listening to Jerry the Damager, and I was like, that sounds cool. And then it's like, woman shouldn't dress like this.
I know. I was like,
fuck.
Jesus Christ, dude. Yeah. No, that I remember I remember hearing that song, Playing Yourself.
That's the song I'm talking about.
And I was like, oh, this is cool. And I'd never listened to the lyrics. And then I was like, all right, let me legally download some of his tracks. And I was like, nope.
Yeah. Because I was like, man, I wonder what he's talking about. And it's like, respect yourself. It's like, okay. It's like, don't sell drugs. I get that. Women shouldn't be wearing. I was like, okay, well,
okay.
It's really cool to really damage.
It's really hard to be misogynist in a different way during the 90s too.
Yeah, like positive misogyny.
It misses the mark in the other direction. Instead of calling them a hoe. Well, I mean, I guess it is still. It's the
same thing.
It's the same thing.
Like so that. There's so many bands right now on my Spotify where like I hope no one looks up my Spotify because I do not want to explain why I have a bunch of problematic bands on my Spotify.
Oh really? I don't worry about that.
I don't either until someone's like, "Oh, plug it in." I'm like, okay.
I still love I love that the things that like rappers used to get away with. Although the homophobia stuff is a little cringe now, but like the racial stuff, like when Method Man calls being high like something problematic about like Asian people.
Oh yeah.
Like that terminology is like, I listen to it, I'm like, God damn, that's fucking crazy.
It's crazy. And I'm like, no, man, like yeah, because like
we can change the subject.
No, because like growing up in Huntington Beach, the way that the minorities in Huntington Beach befriended each other was making very fucked up racist jokes.
Oh yeah, that's how Latinos like we troll each other about
it. And you had to, because it's like, let's just be honest, if we're not gonna be friends, we probably have to go fight skinheads separately, so let's just make these jokes, get it out, and if we get harassed, we could just be friends and then be harassed together.
Yeah, if a Latino calls me a balsero, I laugh. But if a white person calls me a balsero, I'm like, yo, dude.
It's a lot of those rules.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You know what a balsero is, right? Like rafter, or someone that comes on a raft.
I didn't want to say it. I have a lot of like Latino friends. I'm like,
it's our version of the one that I'm not gonna say.
Yeah. In my head, I was literally adding like, nope, she'll be mad at me if I say that. He won't be mad. I was just like, who will not be mad? That's the way I do stuff now. It's like, who's going to take this seriously? Who's not? Who's going to know that I'm joking? Who's not?
Yeah. I don't know. I like when you got here, I was watching a show called Bad Friends, a podcast. Have you watched it?
I've heard of it.
So like it's Bobby Lee and Andrew Santino, and all they do is roast each other. But because like racially, like they call you, and then Bobby's always like, or Andrew Santino's always doing Asian accents. Yeah. And for some reason, it's still fucking hilarious.
It's funny
because Bobby's laughing at it, but the context matters, right?
The context. I don't think my ex would care, but I was hanging out with my ex, like she's Korean, and we were talking about like meeting like her dad or something, and she was very hesitant, and as a joke, I need to state this as a joke. They were like, "Oh, maybe we should stop dating Korean girls." As a joke,
Yeah.
And I told that to my very progressive friend, and I had to listen to the lecture. I'm like, "Geez,
yeah, that's a little tiresome."
Yeah, and I was like, "Dude," it's like, obviously, yes, it's not funny technically, but it's also very funny.
It's also very like what's it called? There's the Hassan Minaj thing. I don't know if you know that comedian.
No, I know the beef that he's not beef, but like how he got in trouble.
Yeah, so he got in trouble for like over dramatizing, not like making things up for not in a funny way, but in a dramatic, in a very in a victimhood kind of way.
Yeah,
and what was it like? There's so many like Indian comics that are like, I'm confusing right now. Not Sagar and Jetty, but the guy that, anyway, whatever. We're gonna just cut this out
because I like Sagar from Breaking Points, right?
Yeah,
I listen to Breaking Points while I'm at the studio, and then listen to Blocking Report at the studio, and then I'm like, this is really heavy. Let me just listen to the music.
Yeah. I've especially with all the stuff that we're not going to talk about that's happening right now. Yeah. I'm like,
thank you. I was really afraid. I'm not going to talk about it. But I was like, all my friends were like,
no. It's outside of my purview.
It's outside of my. I studied political science.
I mean,
before I became an artist, and it's still outside of my purview. Like, so many friends were like, "You don't have to know." Let's like talk about something.
Yeah. No, but it is interesting. Like, how much. Like I mean, my stance is always just like, let's not sell weapons to weapons manufacturers for no reason.
That's a really good stance. Like.
Yeah.
Being like, so my dad like worked for like a weapons manufacturing, not because he was like, oh, pro grounds. He's like, I have a family to feed.
Yeah.
This makes sense. I need to feed my family.
My dad worked for a neoliberal organization, and his attitude was the same. It's like, I don't know if I'm actually helping, but I'm helping 6 people, which is our immediate family.
I remember one time I was getting bad grades, and my dad's like, I work a job that I fucking hate. I have to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I have bought you food. I have bought you clothes. I pay the mortgage. I pay for everything. All I'm asking you is for you to open a book. Yeah. And I was like, and he was like pissed. He's like, I don't like my job. Yeah. I'm doing it because I have a family to support. And why can't you just get at least a B in algebra? And I was like, math's hard. And he's like, open your book.
My job is harder.
Yeah, basically.
Well, okay, so you mentioned that you had a topic, and we're already kind of dipping our toe into it because you said that your work is about relationships.
My work.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because I kind of realized like with the photo book that came out in 2019, I didn't know exactly when my work was about relationships.
And wait, which photo book?
Well, nothing. Let's have a copy of it.
Oh, okay.
And I spent 4 years doing this very intense, very intrusive documentary of my friends' lives, and some of my family's lives. And a lot of my friends, with the exception of like 2 or 3, are not Black, like people of color. And I was just basically wondering, how did they cope with things so I could cope with it? And while I was shooting, we thought my dad was going to die, so I photographed him in the hospital. My really good friend, AJ Dungle, who did the comic book graphic novel In Waves, he just lost his girlfriend.
Oh, wow.
So I photographed him outside of his like girlfriend's like tombstone. My other good friend, Christine, she got diagnosed with cancer.
Whoa,
and,
dude.
Yeah, and, you know, friends were in and out of the hospital. Friends were getting out of a long-term relationship, and I was like photographing them. And some of my friends...
What dates? What are the
2014 to 2018.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I shouldn't interrupt you, but I'm just trying to get a perspective.
No, it's very recent.
So, but it's also pre-pandemic, which is the main question.
Very much pre-pandemic.
Because I hear people dying, and I'm like, wait, what?
Oh no, it's very much pre-pandemic, and some of my friends were having like sex in front of me, and like just living their life. And the whole idea was at first thinking, oh, I just want to like learn how to like make this. I want to learn how they deal with life so I could deal with it. And then pandemic happened, and I was doing all these like paintings, and all my paintings references my photographs, and I was trying to be like, oh, it's this fictional city where no one would care or judge you with the music you listen to. And then
so no high schools.
Yeah, no high school. Well, okay, so in this fictional city, you're not allowed to listen to the Smiths. Like, you're not allowed to.
Why?
Because like when I grew up, everyone who I grew up who likes the music I didn't like the Smiths. And then I was really into this woman who liked the Smiths, and I listened to the Smiths like, oh, this man sucks. And that sucks, but I was this is not my music. All my friends don't like the Smiths, so it's like a running joke.
Where did you, what? Like, you must have found the only pocket of people that don't like the Smiths.
It's 5 of my friends do not like.
You're acting like you live in a world where the Smiths are Dave Matthews Band.
Well, in this world they are. Like,
Jesus.
I felt really bad because like my second painting show, I did a large painting of this girl peeing, which is based on a photograph. And I have this tree where it's like all my friends, and I was like, don't listen to the Smiths. And this woman came up and was like, oh my God, this is so funny. I'm like, oh, cool. It's like, because you're like the Smiths and you're being ironic. We're like, what? She's like, you're being ironic, right?
No.
And I was like, no, I really dislike the Smiths. And she was like, I like the Smiths though. I'm like, okay, I'm not making fun of you. I just
Wait, so you don't like the Smiths?
I don't like the Smiths.
You don't like the Smiths? I thought you were the only person that did like the Smiths. Okay, all right. Well, then we shall drop the topic because I don't want people to hate you.
Well, whatever. I mean,
no, I'm teasing.
I know. I like Handsome Devil. That's the only
Handsome Devil. Okay.
Yeah, because I heard Handsome Devil in a skate video. I was like, oh, this is all the Smith songs, and then I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
As a joke, I do sing Charming Man at karaoke.
You know a lot more of their songs by name than I do.
It's only two.
But you named two that are outside of my.
Also, I'm sorry, because I have a lot of vegan friends, like Meat is Murder, which I think is the funniest song ever.
Wait, so they do like it? So some people do.
One of my friends is vegan.
Okay, and they just don't like meat.
I just like the song "Meat Is Murder" because I think it's funny.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like it's definitely. I don't know. To me, that's such a mindfuck because I went to school and like all of the goth kids going to goth night, like the Smiths were a staple. So it's funny.
I have a lot of Latino friends that like the Smiths.
Oh yeah, over here, yeah, for sure. Like that is a stereotype out here.
Well, obviously I can't do it now, but I keep my hatred for the Smiths very secret.
Yeah, you don't want to get.
I don't.
Would you come on a podcast and you blast it out?
Like, yeah, man, I hate the Smiths. I hate the dark. Yeah.
So then, can we get back into like your relationships? So I feel like the audience would be mad at me if I didn't follow up on this. Did you say that your friends were having sex in front of you?
Somewhere.
Okay, like this.
Okay, I'm not gonna. Okay, I can't.
You don't have to say names, but like in what context?
So
because that used to happen when I was a kid, because people didn't have a place.
It wasn't porn. It wasn't. Okay, so I'm gonna be very vague. I had one friend. She's a woman, and I was into our other friend who's also a woman. I was like, oh man, this.
Oh, okay.
Person's really
so
cute.
You're a gangster.
No, I'm not a gangster. It wasn't us. I am not into her at all. But what happened was throughout the night, but this friend I was into, she's like, "Oh, like I'm like, I think I'm gay," and then I'm like, "Okay, I can't do anything." And then they were kissing, and then it got very serious, and I stopped it because like I'm feeling very uncomfortable. Yeah. And another friend who I'm not gonna mention, like they weren't. It wasn't like sex. It was like before they got into it. Yeah. Either they stop it or I stop it. But
yeah,
to me, it was all about intimacy. It was all about reality of it, and none of that had. And I was like torn with wanting to show this book because I went to art school, and
where'd you go?
I went to Art Center, Taina Hiroshi, and I was still underneath the impression like, oh, a black photographer is supposed to do this. And majority of my friends are not black. And I had this book. And what really got to me, what really helped me out with it was, I think it was 2016 where they had that massacre of some dude walking to a mosque in Australia. And
wow. It's so crazy that there's so many that I don't even know which one you're talking about.
But being a black photographer, my friend is a black Muslim. I was thinking, oh, I have to talk about this because I'm a black artist. And I asked like, oh, how you feeling? And he said, man, things are like really heavy right now. And I was like, oh, what's going on? It's like, remember that woman I was dating? She broke up with me and she told me that I wasn't like worthy. And I thought I was going to marry this woman. I thought I was going to have kids with her. And I felt really shitty because I wanted him to talk about this thing where I'm supposed to talk about. And he's talking about this relationship that's ended. And this guy's very smart. And right then and there, it changed everything where I was thinking, I don't want to talk about race unless I have to. Because my friends are hurting. Like this dude thought he was going to marry this woman and she broke up with him. And here I am thinking, oh, you need to talk about politics, like politics. And
the humanity comes first.
The humanity comes first. And I do feel some sort of way when people do get upset when I don't talk about like blackness. Like my work is all about humanity, like the relationships. It took me, I've been making art since like 10 years, like a long time. And it took me last week, like, no, my work is about relationships. My work is about my friends are very important to me. My romantic relationships are very important to me. And
plural? How many?
Oh, no, I mean, like,
are you poly?
No, I'm not.
No, okay.
I'm not poly.
Just to clarify.
I'm saying
just
like,
to spice things up
too. No, I'm not poly, but I'm saying throughout shooting this book, I've had like people come in my life and out, and shooting is the only time where I'm really present. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, I don't think like, oh, this relationship could end. Or this friend could not be my friend anymore. I'm not even thinking about exposing my film correctly. I'm thinking about that moment I have with them. And when I do get film back, I'm like, okay, let me like try to figure out which one works for the project we're working on.
Well, this is interesting because first of all, you reference Hiroshi Clark, who's also a photographer. So I know you from your paintings now.
Yeah.
So when did that transition happen? I mean, are you still taking pictures? Because I also was a photographer, and I don't identify as that anymore.
I had to ask my friend if I could talk about this. So and she said, yeah, I'll be very vague. Like, she's my best friend now. Like, what's my best friend?
That's pretty
3 years ago. Now his best friend. Okay, so
that's pretty specific. People know who your best friend is usually.
Oh, funny you should say that. I'm not allowed to have more than one best friend, and then I'm not gonna say her name, but I made a joke because hanging out with my friend Billy, and she's really cool. I was like, oh, hang out with my best friend, and then this person's like, what the fuck? What's that about? And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, you said she's her best friend. I was like, oh, I'm joking. It's like, are you sure? I'm like, dude, yeah. And then she's like, because best means one, and I'm your best friend. And I'm like, I'm joking. She's like, I don't think so. I'm like, okay.
Semantically, she is correct. Best mean there's only one best. You can't be the two bests. So it seems like I don't know that I can handle that kind of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. And here's the thing. I didn't mention who said that, and when this podcast comes out, she is going to text me and be like, everyone knows you're talking about me. I'm like, I didn't mention your name.
Okay.
So
let's dig us deeper.
The transition happened in 2018. One of my really, really, really close friends, we had this very intimate friendship, she got married to this dude. I'm being very vague. And this dude sent me a cease and desist letter saying like the photos can't be a book under the guise of her doing it. And I panicked and I sent it to my sister because she's a lawyer, and my sister was laughing and she's like, this is not a real cease and desist letter. I'm like, what? No, yeah, it is. I was like,
it's in crayon.
No, it's just like, what's the name of the book? I'm like, I don't know. It's like, what photos? I was like, I don't know. And then I became afraid of like just getting close with someone. So 2020, I couldn't get close with anyone. I was like, I need to paint. And then my studio mates, they were like, you will get better at painting if you paint with us. So then I have all these old photographs, and I was painting, and for some reason I was making more money painting than I was with shooting photos.
Well, your paintings are lovely.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I really appreciate that. So I taught myself how I got more into painting. And in 2022, this person called my phone, and I don't know why it didn't. I guess she had a different phone, and she was like, I'm sorry what happened. We're not married anymore. It was like I was not in a good place. And then we started talking and started to realize how bad she thinks this person was in, this relationship, like this person was in. And because of her and because of now she's my ex, because of those two, my ex let me photograph the way that I needed to photograph.
Mm-hmm.
And she was always cool with it. And that kind of helped because I got closer. I was like, oh, I could get close with someone.
Mm.
And so this is 2022. And I was like, I could get close with someone. And when that relationship ended, I miss being close with someone. I miss shooting. I really miss shooting. And I was looking at Hiroshi's work, and I was thinking, I wanted to approach this more technical. Because the book, 4 years of shooting, because it was spontaneous, I wasn't using a light meter. I was just like guessing. And I was saying, I want to stop guessing. I wanted to be more attention on my work. And the weird thing is that by me being more intentional on my work, I became more intentional who I want to photograph. So it was like, okay, because film is really expensive. It's really expensive.
No shit. That's one of the reasons I don't shoot pictures anymore.
It's really expensive, and to get developed is really expensive. And I was thinking, I have a lot of photographs of people who are not naked, but they're like, can you not use this because my hair looks weird? And I was thinking, I can't have that. I do not want to buy really expensive film, shoot it, pay money to get it developed and scanned in, and then have it be like, my hair looks weird. And so I became very intentional when I'm shooting. And then the paintings, one of my biggest influence on my paintings is Paige Moon.
Okay.
LA based painter, went to art center, and we kind of have similar work where her work is based on these situations in her life. It's narrative. It's based on like photographs, and she's very technical and very detail oriented. So I was thinking, okay, I really want this body of work to be taken more seriously. So with the photographs, I'm more intentional. With the paintings, instead of just letting things go, I like, okay, I'm tired. Let me go home. Whereas before, I'd be like, oh, I want to finish this. I'm so cool. I'm doing like 8 paintings of whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So now everything's like more intentional because that person's back in my life and I miss photographing that person. And I want to do this narrative about relationships because my good friend's getting out of a 10-year relationship and her and I talk about all the time. My other friends getting out of a relationship. My other friends are getting into very serious relationships. And I'm thinking, okay, I know about the history of like being Black in this country. I'm aware of like racism and every stuff, but all these people who are close to me are either getting out of relationships or getting into relationships. I'm very close with my friends. I'm very close with people who are very important to me. So I want to focus on that. Mm-hmm. So that's like that's where it started off, because I think talking about race all the time is it takes away the humanity. And people, I'm not like an entertainer, I'm an artist. And I think that once you always talk about race, they know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to stay away from that as much as possible. And
it's like performative Blackness sometimes.
It's like, yeah.
With the expectation, not that you are performing, but but that pressure. Like it's I also feel like that like is part of the like, if I may, the liberal like under like the masking of liberal racism, like where they are still very much aware of the difference, and then they, you know, it's an interesting thing to just see, because I mean I obviously try to have people of different backgrounds, and obviously sometimes you're interested, but I feel like a lot of the questions are more like that people have about race towards Black people might be more ethnic. Yeah, in terms of like,
it's like weird. It's weird that I'm 40 and I really thought this question was dead when I was 20.
Which question?
The Black, like, how do you consider yourself a Black artist because of X, Y, and Z?
Yeah,
I thought that was dead. It's not.
I mean, it's not like you really have a choice to, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's the thing that's a bummer. Is like, so like this morning I wake up at 7:00 every morning. I text like my friend Yuri and I text Joya like my breakfast, and then meditate, go to the studio, paint, and then make dinner. I'm not really thinking about Blackness during that time, you know.
And I think it just there's like a white guilt element to making it like being like people want to be seen for, it's like a virtue signal.
It's like a virtue signal.
People want to be like, I get it, you know.
Yeah, and I was like, I just want a slice of pizza, dude. I'm happy you got it, but can I please get a number 2? Okay, so like years ago, before the racial reckoning in 2017, Starbucks had this deal where the baristas would talk to the customers about race.
It was the in reaction to George Floyd, right?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And they stopped because it wasn't white people who were getting bummed out. It was Black people who were getting bummed out. And I know why. Because at 5:00 in the morning, you're going to a job you hate. I didn't want to talk about race shit. I am going to this job I hate. Can I please get an overpriced cup of coffee? Yeah. And it's all, So that's the way I feel about it. And I felt really weird about it until... This is very important. What really changed my mind about that whole necessary, like having to do this thing out of necessity, was 2012. I had, instead of having a portfolio at Art Center, I had like a photo book, because portfolios are really expensive and a photo book is like $50. And book designed by a Black woman, like one of my friends. And I was getting that stupid Black question from a lot of people who were not Black. And I showed the book to, right now, he's a photo chair of Art Center, Everett Williams. Before, he was like the co-chair. I'm not sure like what he was when I was going there. But I was like freaking out, and I showed him a book. And he's like, oh, this is a beautiful book. And I was like, oh, yeah, you know, people are saying that it's not black enough. And then he was like, who shot this book? I was like,
yeah, right.
I was like, I did. And then he said, are you a black photographer? And I was like, yeah. I was like, case closed. And that is what set me up to the work I'm making now, where it's like,
that was in 2012.
Yeah,
that's an interesting. I've heard people say stuff in the same realm, right? It is. I think it also might come from like a selling point, right? Like I think I keep saying this, but I talked to Elmer Guevara. Do you know him?
If I see his work party.
Yeah. So he's been doing pretty well right now. But one of the things he was saying is that it's like part of what's happening with his success now is that there's like a demand for people of color now, you know, and he wasn't saying it as a negative. He's just observing the market, right?
Yeah.
But in that process of people trying, like, it's not Black or Latino people that are running the top echelons of the art world, right? So the thing that they're looking for, it's still through the white gaze, essentially.
It's still
you know, like the you know, and then it's interesting because like you just